agreement with previous statements. When appropriate, the commissioners may refer an item identified during public comments to the county administrator for further action. Please note that if the speaker intends to give commissioners any records of any kind as a part of a presentation, the records must be handed directly to the clerk of the board for distribution.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Mr. Atkins, since you were first in sitting down, I'll let you go first.
Is this on?
Yes.
I have several items today. Last week it was brought up that there was a complaint regarding an elected official, and I've previously stated this. Any elected official that has a complaint lobbied against them, the public needs to know what that complaint is. Because how are we supposed to know if this elected official is doing his job, there's harassing people or whatever it is, because we're going to vote for that person, and we need to know any complaints regarding that individual. It's not, they are not hired by the county, so I don't think it falls in a human resource issue. So that's what I have there. You know, it's important that we know what's going on with individuals, so we know which way to vote or not. The next question is our lovely governor, who has passed his budget regarding property taxes and stuff. I was just wondering, have you guys already looked at that? I know last year you increased the property taxes by 1%. I hope that you're holding, wasn't it last year or the year before? Year before. So, yeah, because anyway, I hope we're holding the line on our expenditures so we don't have to do that. We already hear a lot about companies leaving, people leaving. I've personally heard of people that have retired and can't afford their home because of the taxes, property taxes anymore. Wasn't in this county, but still. And also the next question is, we spend approximately $80,000 a month for apartments, housing people. And I wonder when was the last time you got a full readout on how many people that we're paying for to be in apartments, hotels, whatever. What's the longest length of time a person has been in that program. And I hope we could I'd like to get a full report at a commissioners meeting sometime. I realize that the state gives us money for that, but still, I know that you know, people need a hand up, and I know that, you know, it's monitored, but is it only monitored by one person, or does everybody, commissioners, aware of all that, about how many people? Then the next question I have is the recovery center. How is that going to be staffed? Is that by county employees, contracted individuals? Thank you. I thought that, but I just want to make sure. That's all I have.
Yeah, I don't want to run a recovery center. Well, maybe we can get Kyle in here, our human service director, maybe to give a briefing here in the next couple meetings on that. I know it is all pass-through money, like you said, from the federal government and the state for the housing programs that the legislature funds. But the legislature raised your property taxes again for next year. Schools.
And then, Jim, if you want to wait until at the end, we can go ahead and talk publicly. I'll kind of answer one or two of your questions.
Yeah. Okay, next we have Carol Larkin from Richland. You have about 3 minutes or so.
Thank you.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, good morning. It's good to see you all. My name is Carol Larkin. I'm a member of the Tri-Cities Immigrant Coalition. The Tri-Cities Immigrant Coalition is a nonpartisan community group that's working to build trust and understanding within our immigrant community about immigration issues, within our whole community, about immigration issues. On June 4th, the Franklin County Commissioners passed several resolutions in which they declared their intention not to be a sanctuary county. And they also were encouraging other local leaders to pass similar resolutions. I want to comment today on those resolutions. First of all, the commissioners use the term sanctuary county. This actually refers to the Keep Washington Working Act, which was passed by the Washington State Legislature in 2019 with bipartisan support. Basically, what it does is it forbids law enforcement from using their time or resources to help federal officials enforce immigration law. What it absolutely does not do is hinder their enforcement of immigration law. The Franklin County Commissioners stated that one of their reasons to oppose Keep Washington Working was to promote public safety and encourage economic stability. So what does best promote public safety? Well, several of us from the Tri-City Immigrant Coalition have been in the past few months meeting with various elected officials. We've met with the Franklin County Sheriff, the Benton County Sheriff, the Kennewick Police Chief. I attended a Chamber of Commerce luncheon at which all three police chiefs, Pasco, Kennewick, and Richmond, spoke all about their programs. What all of them said was that the most important thing in public safety is having the trust of the community. That's what keeps the most safe, is most important for safety. When local law enforcement assists federal immigration officers, that trust is lost. Consequently, people are hesitant to report crimes or to be willing to testify about crimes. Another important factor in public safety is having enough resources. All of these people we met with indicated that they were somewhat overstaffed and spread thin. Franklin County Sheriff has 25 officers and covers 1,300 square miles. Benton County Sheriff says they cover all of Benton County, and his office also provides enforcement for small cities that can't afford a police department, and they're currently doing that in Macton. Sometimes they had to take over a department that was violating laws, for example, Benton City. They also said it's very difficult to get qualified people. That's one of the main reasons they're understaffed. Sheriff Crosby said they had to, at the time we met with him, they had to fill 2 positions, and they had already turned down 200 applicants. They just can't find qualified people. And I heard the same thing from Chris Guerrero, Kennewick Police Chief. They currently have 10 openings, and they only 3.1% of those who apply are hired. Martin Pilcher, they're down 8 positions, but he says they will never lower their standards. He said it's worse to have a bad cop in a car than no cop. And I really appreciated that. Their standards are high. I was really impressed by all the training and everything. So another question is, well, are immigrants causing a lot of crime? The only sheriff I thought to ask that question was Franklin County Sheriff Jim Raymond. I asked him, are you seeing evidence of widespread crime done by immigrants? He said, no, not at all. I said, well, how high is it? He says, maybe 5% or less. He said that the biggest problem with crime comes because of gangs and drugs, and that's not limited to Hispanics. He gave the example. He says it's about money. And he mentioned one gang that is led by a Hispanic and a Caucasian. Yes. I didn't quite know my timing. Anyway, so those are the main points I have. I could speak much more about the economics that are affected by immigration, but I will wrap it up. And what I would like to say to you is, in the interest of keeping our community safe and also encouraging our economic vitality, please continue to uphold law and Keep Washington Working. Thank you.
Mr. Barry, did I pronounce that right? Yes. And you're from Richmond too.
Yeah, my name's Mickey Berry, and I'm also a member of the Tri-City Immigrant Coalition, and I'm here to speak to you about Keep Washington Working. One thing I'd like to reinforce what Carol just said is that it's well documented that the immigrants have a lower crime rate than the white population. So this idea of rampant immigrant crime is simply fallacious. It's false. So I did a little research on immigrant law enforcement. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that HR 1, the one big beautiful bill, will direct an astounding $168 billion to immigration and law enforcement. If we took all of the local law enforcement across this country, it would only be a fraction of this amount of money. So immigration law enforcement is well funded. In fact, ICE has had a 300% increase in their budget. So what I wanted to make clear to you and Carol spoke to this is by contracting with federal law enforcement, we're pulling away important personnel that are doing local law enforcement. And they're already understaffed, as Sheriff Krosky told us in our February meeting. So I would just say to you that federal money goes for federal law enforcement, local taxes goes for local law enforcement, and by compromising those two budgets, we're compromising local law enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna Carey?
Good morning. I'm Donna Carey. I live in West Richmond at 2702 Briarwood Lane. I've been with the coalition since its inception 8 years ago. I know many immigrant and refugee families because I worked 13 years as a bilingual special ed teacher, and I also taught Spanish classes, citizenship classes in Spanish for 5 years. I look at who's being arrested. Many of them are not criminals, and they're following directions, and they're going to ICE check-ins. Sergio, the man from Kennewick, who was arrested April 24th, had an appointment. He was sent an invitation to go to USCIS in Yakima and was arrested there. His wife had accompanied him for an appointment that they'd been waiting 3 years to get. I'm also concerned about how aggressive the people are being. If you watch the videos of arrests that took place after last Wednesday's meeting happened on Thursday, it seemed like the law enforcement were being quite aggressive, and the people weren't really resisting. I think if warrants could be used instead, that would be something like that. I know people in the community have received many calls. People are concerned because a lot of the officers doing or the people doing the arresting do not have identification. So they don't know if it's ICE or local law enforcement or even maybe vigilantes. The calls that I got last week after Wednesday's meeting were a lot of fear and misinformation. And it didn't relate to safety or justice, and I think it's contributing to unraveling some public trust in our officials. The impact is bound to have a lot of effect in our community, on shopping, on working, people going to work or not going to medical appointments. One family that I'm friends with, the husband has worked in the fields for 28 years, his wife for 20 years. They're very concerned if they get deported, then what's going to happen with their daughter and what will happen with their home and their cars. One of my biggest concerns is, as a community and as a country, when the children of the people who are being deported or detained for long periods of time are arrested, those children, when they grow up, are they going to be positive contributing citizens to our community and to our country? One family that I work with, The husband had been detained for 17 months back in 19 and 20. And the whole disruption to that family, their wife and 4 children lost their home, lost their apartment, so they were homeless. The one son, now he's about 17, and they don't know where he is. He went to Los Angeles, so I'm afraid this is not going to contribute to positive citizens in the future. Thank you for your attention, and we trust in your judgment.
Anyone else here in Kennewick wishing to speak? Prosser, do you see any hand raised? What's the name? Rebecca? State your name and where you're from, Rebecca.
Certainly. Is it coming through?
Yes, you're coming through.
Okay. I don't agree with the 4 or the 3 people that just spoke beforehand, especially when the terminology is immigrants. I don't think the people are against immigrants. They're against illegal immigrants. So we need to use the correct terminology, and then we might even be on the same page. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca. Any other hand raised? Cindy? No? Okay, we'll close public comment. Thank you for everyone for coming for that. Next, the consent agenda. If we can have a motion to approve the consent agenda items A through I. L, oh, that's a L. I got glasses on too.
I'll move to go ahead and approve the consent agenda for items A through L.
I thought L was lazy, not Lincoln. I'll second that.
He doesn't have a military background. Okay, have a motion to approve the consent agenda items A through L.
Is the count going on Eagle Scout?
No.
That's pretty good.
Well, you cannot, it's not scouts, but you need to know the alphabet, because, what do they call that? That's some, we use as police officers, military. Okay, I have a motion to approve the agenda items A through L. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, the motion passes. Okay, scheduled business. We have historic preservation grant. Katie?
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, so I'm here this morning with a contract and recommended project funding for your approval with Washington State University and our historic preservation grant. I think you're aware of the program, but it started in 2007 to promote historic preservation programs within the borders of Benton County. Each year, we call upon the Historic Preservation Advisory Committee to determine recommended funding for your approval. So this 2025 grant cycle allocated a total of $50,000 available for grant applicants. We received 4 total applicants. This one today that I'm presenting to you is with Washington State University, in particular with WSU Tri-Cities, requesting the amount of $15,830 for their program of Heritage Archiving Women's Oral Histories in Benton County. They presented this to us, and it's a very interesting program. It aims to develop an archive with oral histories of Latina women in our region, and to support student research as they acquire historical methods and preservation skills. It also will be, I believe, spotlighted at a community outreach event at their exhibit at the Art Center at WSU Tri-Cities. So that is our recommendation from the committee for your approval, and I am here for any questions.
Any questions, gentlemen? No? Yes.
I move to approve the 2025 Historic Preservation Grant in Washington State University as presented, and hereby authorize the county administrator to sign the grant disbursement agreement.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion passes. Okay, thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Next for a policy for snow and ice control operations, Mr. Rasmus.
Thank you, Commissioners. So every year, I think maybe last year we missed it, but we typically go and review and update our snow and ice control policy. So we created that probably 6 or 7 years ago to give the public an expectation of what the roadways would look like during winter driving conditions. And I want to make sure everyone has a clear understanding is that's not clear, bare, wet roads. We plow and salt and de-ice and do all of that to a condition that a reasonable driver with a reasonably equipped vehicle will be able to traverse our roadways. And then we prioritize roads that have a lot more traffic, or our school bus routes, or maybe emergency vehicle routes. We make sure that those are first. And so the local roads with very little traffic, they get plowed probably last. And so, some storms will get to everything pretty quickly, and some storms, if it's continuous snow and it keeps coming down, it may be a day or two before we can get to every road out there. And so that's been our practice and policy for the last several years. It's worked fairly well for us. What we're doing with this update is we get new roads every year through subdivisions and constructions. We're adding in those new roads. We have some position changes out there, so the delegations of authority in here need to change. The public works manager out there runs the day-to-day operations on the snow and ice control, and so we want to make sure that he has the authority to make those decisions. And then we've also moved away a little bit from, we had some very specific rates of application of the various materials, and we've recognized that that's a little bit binding. We need to be able to be a little more flexible depending on the weather situation and the exact location. So we're moving away from that and leaving that to best management practices determined by the public works manager. So those are the key changes that we're doing this year. The policy isn't new, it's been in place for several years. So we just like to make sure it stays up to date and consistent with our practice.
Okay, any questions?
No, I'll say comment. I've seen an improvement too, especially like up on the Horse Heaven Hills, like Reese Road, all those roads up there. For doing project in 2013, holy moly, it was crazy. But now doing the project up there, it's the roads. So I've seen improvement on this, how you guys can change things and got things smooth. So part of that is we invested in some new equipment up there. We didn't, for many years, we used the traditional V-plows on the front of the motor graders, and those do a good job. But we realized that some of the snow drifts we get up there, that people don't realize. When you live down here, if we get 4 or 6 inches of snow down here, it's a whole different world on the top of that hill. You'll get the wind will blow, and we have snow drifts that will be 15 to 20 feet deep and hundreds of feet long. I mean, but then the field next to it will have no snow on it at all. It's just nuts. So we invested in a snow blower to help clear those, and that has been a really good investment for the county. We don't use it every year. Some years, we're fortunate and don't have to get it out, but helps clear those roads up there a lot better. We also get a lot of help from the farmers up there. They do a really good job helping us out and keeping those roads open when we need them. So it makes sense too doing it up there for how big of agricultural land is up there and how many farm employees are up there. It makes sense what we're doing, because during Snowzilla, what was it, 2018? Yeah. Holy moly, that was not fun. And they're talking about snow drifts, they're talking like 30, 40 feet high. Yeah. I've got some pictures of out there. It was a little bit further east, and one of the guys on our crew went by with a bulldozer because we had a red dozer to help out with that. And he uncovered a pickup truck that was buried in a snowdrift. And what you can see is the dozer when it got to the ground, the truck is 6 or 7 feet off the ground, and then it was still completely buried under snow. That's how deep that drift was. So I got a text from our public works director. He reminded me another key change is we actually reduced the depth of snow that accumulates on the roadway before we start plowing. It was previously 4 inches, and we've knocked that down to 2. That's more consistent with our practice. So
yeah, again, I mean this year wasn't that bad. Hopefully we don't get another Snowzilla next year. So no, I agree.
Yeah, all the farmers and ranchers up there, they do appreciate that. Like I said, I heard it on a plane for about 3 hours with somebody sitting next to me. So that was a rancher up there.
I have some noise canceling headphones. Okay, you have a motion for that.
Would you like me to make a motion? Oh, sorry, my microphone's a little messed up. Hold on a second. Okay, just joking. I hereby move the Board of Benton County Commissioners approve adopt a policy for snow and ice control operations in Benton County, and that all previous policies for snow and ice control operations are hereby repealed and replaced.
I'll second that.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Guys have it. Motion passes. Other business, bring up, you guys received an email from a gentleman, out on Clodfelter Road about the bicycles. You have something to report on that?
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago, we received an email from a gentleman who lives on Clodfelter Road. He had emailed about a year and a half ago with the same complaint about bicycles on the road, and had asked the county ban bicycles from Clodfelter Road. At the time, we said, you know, that they're illegal use of the road, and they are afforded all the same rights as a motor vehicle. You know, they can use the shoulder if they choose, but banning bicycles on that road probably wasn't in the county's best interest. And we don't see a tremendous amount of bike traffic. Occasionally there are events, and you know, he's not incorrect that from time to time the bicycles will get, you know, too many wide and they don't follow the rules, but that's an enforcement issue, not a ban the activity issue. So he also made some complaints about dirt bikes using the roadway. Again, that's not a legal use, and it's an enforcement issue. And there's apparently scooters, electric scooters. I haven't seen that, and we haven't heard of that up there, but obviously none of us live up there, so it's possible it happens and we don't see it. But again, that would also be, they're considered pedestrian, and so if they're doing something unlawful on the roadway, that would be an enforcement issue. So my preferred response to him is to say, and because it came to the three commissioners, I wanted to make sure that you were all in agreement with the responses. You know, we're still not interested in banning bicycles. The enforcement issues that exist, we'll refer those to the sheriff's office and ask them to keep an eye on it and take a look. And I know they do. They patrol up there regularly. If they're seeing that kind of stuff, I'm certain they would take care of it. And we told them last time that, you know, we're continuously monitoring our roads, and if we see issues arising with near misses and close calls or accidents, that we address those and seek funding. And, you know, Clodfelter Road is on our list of roads that we know needs, you know, some wider shoulders and things like that. The cost to do that is significant, and so we have to prioritize and make decisions with the types of money we have and the types of funding we can get. And so we'll continue to monitor that and make good decisions. Any concerns or objections?
Well, can I add to that? Like I'm doing the big project up there up on Horsehaven Hills, Reese Road, or Clodfelter, Reese out there. So I'm going out there like 3 or 4 times a day. And I do see, not you, but I've seen Commander Law and a couple other deputies on the, Locust Grove, Clodfelter, that intersection right there. I've talked to them quite a bit. The speed limit's 50 miles an hour. I'll set my cruise control for 55. But there's cars that'll pass me going 80 or 90 miles an hour. So I'm pretty sure that you guys have gotten tickets out there. But there has been times where I'll see, maybe once or twice a week, I'll see 5 or 6 people riding bikes, but they're all in one single lane, going, you know, like right on the white line. Right. So it's not like they're taking up the whole road. So I don't really see any issues. I mean, I do get it if they're taking the whole lane up, right? They're not.
Yeah, that's what we typically see is they ride single file, which is what the law requires. Yeah. And I know though that when they have big, that's a popular route for race training, and I do think they have a loop race that goes through there. So that does happen. But
on the electric bike thing too, like maybe once every other week I'll see an electric bike, but again, and a dirt bike, I did see, when you brought that up, I did see a dirt bike, but there again, I've never once seen them in the lane. They're either on the white line or right on the right-hand side of the line.
Right. So everything he's talking about, other than banning bikes, realistically is an enforcement issue that we need to just make the sheriff's office aware of, and where they can help us what they can do.
So long story short for me, I honestly don't see any issues. I do get it though if they were taking the whole lane up, but I haven't seen that this whole time doing that project up there.
Okay.
So I think we all agree to go ahead and send that response then. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I'll type it up and send it to him.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner McKay, any other business?
No, I just, what Rebecca was saying too, I agree. I mean, and what the comments we had today, for me, it's how our country had all these illegal immigrants. I get it. Come to our country legally and let us help you legal immigrants out. Let us help you out. If you're illegal, yes, correct. You came into the country the wrong way. I do see more issues on that side of things versus having legal immigrants in our community. So that's all I have to say. Add to it.
Just a couple of things. I want to go ahead and address some of the issues that you brought up, Jim. One was about elected officials. I can tell you again, it wasn't any of us. But, that's something that is a public record if you want to go ahead and request that in what department, stuff like that, because we all got emails on that. I mean, that's just being 100% transparent, and that's your obligation, your privilege to go ahead and do. As far as the property tax side of it, a couple things on that, because I think it's important for you and the public to know as well. We don't set the property tax. The state requires the assessor, which is a completely different department from us, an elected official, to assess the property values at a certain percentage. I don't know if it's 95% of the value or 100% of the value, because I'm not the assessor. I've seen where he pulls out this big book and has, being a math person myself, and he has an unbelievable amount of calculation he has to do to figure that out. So that is set by the assessor and the state. We have nothing to do with the property tax. The portion of the property tax, and Matt, I'm looking at you real quick before I go further. There's that property tax is split up between the cities, the county, and go ahead if you want to say anything on that part.
So yeah, I mean, there's and we do a presentation typically every budget cycle.
Yep.
The county gets a very small percentage of the overall property tax. So the valuation, as Commissioner Alvarez, is set by the assessor. The commissioners get to choose the county's portion and the road department's portion, which are two separate levies related to the total valuation of the county. And we don't set it as a percentage, it's a fixed dollar amount. And so the change that you're referring to, the legislature is allowing those taxing districts now to go up to 3% increase. It was previously 1%. And so the commissioners make that determination. We've already built our budget for the next 2 years based on the no increase. And so I don't anticipate an increase in 2026. We'll see, but
You're reading my mind.
But, and so I think if I may, and I don't want to speak for the commissioner, but we do a really good job of ensuring that we stay within our means, and we look to trim and make sure that we aren't increasing the budget before we look for new revenue. And so that's the practice that we have when we build the budget to present to the board. I've worked with these gentlemen for several years, and I know that that is what they want to see from us. And so I think, as you're wanting to know, is, I don't see Benton County just taking the maximum amount. I don't see that happening.
No, and I think going back to that again, and I think 2 years ago, we went ahead and approved a levy tax percentage of that 2 years ago. And the reason why that was being done, and I think that's important as well to explain, and we could have voted again to increase it and take it last year, and we voted not to. But, and it was $270,000, that's all it was for that, spread out between approximately 220,000 Benton County residents. And what we were looking at doing, just like any other county or any other city within the state of Washington, everybody that I was aware of was pretty much upside down or going in, they weren't breaking even on that. And we were making fine adjustments on a lot of different things. We consolidated a couple of different accounts that the county has, that all different departments, all elected officials had, they all do their budget and come to us for approval. We made some fine adjustments with all the other departments, and we consolidated a few items. So one is the fuel account. There's other ones as well. We also did a few other things as well, and all those little bumps, including that $270,000, which isn't a whole lot, bumped us up to we're able to break even. I know that our finance director, I believe it was last year, she made the comment, this budget cycle was her most difficult budget cycle in her career here in Benton County. So all those little fine adjustments were able to make us bump up. But then once we got there, we were able to vote if we wanted to go ahead and take the additional percentage. Last year on a levy tax, we opted not to. My forecast is as long as we have sales tax revenue coming in, and we watch that on a monthly basis, we get reports on that I feel that so far, knock on some type of wood here, that we will probably not take that again next year. And that's all the different departments, all the elected officials, all the finance managers, all those departments are working very hard in cooperation to make sure that we're managing those funds correctly. So that was one of the things I think is important, because I'm sensitive to that part, because we work very hard on that. I think I'm very proud that we're one of the few counties that actually broke even. And so as the economy gets better, we're not having to dig ourselves out of a hole. We can only improve services. And that's my goal here for everybody that lives within Benton County, the 220,000. It's 219,000 something. I just got a report the other day. Going to, I think I covered that portion. The judicial system, man, one of the things I look at on it is we're always going to go ahead and hear that's a little bit different that we have compared to the cities. Because I know you came up here, you said you had watched me, saw me at Washington City Council there. I'm always going to, personally, I'm always going to, as an elected official, I'm always going to go ahead and follow federal, state, and local law. But we're a little bit different here at the county level than the cities. One thing that we're different on, besides, a few different things, is the judicial system as a whole. We budget for the judicial system for the entire county, and the cities use our judicial system here. And so if you look at a car, for example, I'm going to use that analogy, all the safety components of the car, whether it's the windows, the tires, the brakes, emergency brakes, steering wheel, all those type of things, you can look at that as our judicial system here in Benton County. You have your Superior Court, District Court, Sheriff's Office, Coroner's Office, Office of Public Defense, Prosecutor's Office. We got the Benton County Clerk right here in her office does a ton of work. Those are all the components of those safety issues in the judicial system with all those budgets from taxes coming in. So we oversee a lot of those things when it comes to the budget. They manage their departments. They do a good job on that. Then we have the other portion. So if that's your judicial system, then you have your other components, which would be your auditor, your treasurer, your assessor. They're the ones who do all the financial things, bringing money in. Those type of portions. Then you have your county commissioners on that. We manage this, make sure that we're not going over budget and seeing how we can approve those budgets on the request. And then we got the fuel on that car, and that would be the taxpayers bringing in the money in to go ahead and into the system here. So I think that's very important that we work as a whole. I trust our judicial system. I feel very good confident with our judges, our law enforcement, and everybody here in Benton County. So I think that that's something that we will continue to do. And once again, I know that I believe everybody in Benton County here on this side here, as far as the government side is, we're always going to follow the federal, state, and local law. We'll honor that, and we'll continue to do that, and how we're being directed to do that as well here at Benton County. And so I appreciate everybody's comments. That was kind of a short analogy. That got a little bit of your information, at least two questions for you, Jim, and you kind of know how I feel when it comes to the judicial system. We want to make sure we have the integrity and we keep that in place. Thank you.
Okay, let me just some of the comments. There is a distinct difference between refugees, because that was mentioned, because I've worked with the refugee community. Those are people that have gotten the permission, have gotten that status to come into this country legally, and they've had trying times. But what happened the last 4 years was just an abomination by that past administration. And I'll just be clear, I'll put whatever you want to term you want to use, progressive, liberals, Democrats, they sat and watched that happen. They let the flow of people come into this country with no background checks, no nothing. I mean, that was just, and the current administration won on that point, I think, overwhelmingly, that something had to be done about our borders and the people that had come in here illegally. Someone referenced the guy who showed up for his hearing. My understanding, he had a criminal background. It's been made very clear by the current administration that if you have a criminal record or anything, you're going to be deported. It's as simple as that. So, when the sheriff, I would urge the sheriffs to be honest about it, because under that Keep Washington, it's a title, Keep Washington Working. It's like the Inflation Reduction Act. Get a catchy title, but that keeps law enforcement from local law enforcement asking the immigration status. So yeah, we don't know if they're arresting illegally or legal citizens, because they can't ask that status. That's in that law. So, for a sheriff to say, well, I don't know, if you be honest, you you could ask, you would know. I'd be curious what's in there right now, how many people what their immigration status is. But again, they can't ask. But you know, I always go back to my friends from Peru. Took them 10 years to legally immigrate into this country. It's going every day, every other day to the U.S. Embassy in Lima, filling out the paperwork, going through the background checks. It took them 10 years to get here legally. They did it, and now they're U.S. citizens. There is a path for that. Yeah, it's burdensome somewhat, but if you truly want to become an American citizen, there's ways to do it. It's very disparaging for me to see these organized riots in LA, and believe me, they're organized by groups. This isn't just spontaneous citizens. You know, there's organization there, you can tell it, it's planned. But it's disparaging to see, you know, other country flags waving around. And then you hear one reporter quoted, well, yeah, they were handing out American flags because it looked bad having all these other countries' flags being waved on the news camera. So they're handing out to the protesters that a lot of those protesters are being paid. Let's be honest, it's organized, just like the BLM protests back in the day. That was all organized protests. And it's to try to undermine, what our country's about, to sow chaos, so that's it. I mean, I understand, but remember, there's a difference between a refugee and an illegal immigrant. I'm all helping, refugees. I don't have a problem with that. But the 20 million or so, whatever was let in the last 4 years, and then for all these people now stand up and say, oh, well, especially you see it on the national news and the congressional people saying, well, what did you do for the last 4 years? You did nothing. So you can have your comments, and I appreciate that. That's what this forum is for. But, as an elected politician, I think I have a right to say what I want to say, and if it offends people, I guess that offends people. But, as an elected official, if it's women, men, boys playing in women's sports, we can speak about that. It may not be county, we don't have playgrounds or anything. But as a politician, I think we have a duty and a right to tell our feelings. I mean, people vote for us. So I think we have a responsibility and duty. We can speak about what we feel, and whatever we think our political views are. So I do appreciate people coming and giving their comments. I really do. And I let them say their piece, but I think I need to say my piece too. So that's where I'm at. And with that, yes.
I just want to say, I agree with what you're saying. I mean, again, we're elected officials, people don't like what we're doing, we wouldn't have gotten elected, right? So I appreciate what you're saying, and I agree with 100% what you're saying.
You guys know where I am at, so we're there. I think it was important to make the comments. It's important to listen to everybody on this topic. It's a sensitive topic, but there's ways to handle it. And once again, I think we're always going to go on our federal, state, and local laws and do what we need to do here at the county level and stuff like that. Mr. Spencer, anything? He's not back there. No, he's not back there. Josie, anything? No?
I thought Josie was boss lady.
Yeah,
Boss lady.
Yeah, boss lady. She's running the operation. Okay. With that, then, thank you everyone for coming. Have a good rest of the day, and meeting adjourned. Man,